So hello everyone, welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. Been a fantastic day so far. Obviously, we need to get into the big story of the California fires because that is the talk of the town. Everybody is concerned. Everybody has seen the images. I'm going to show you a bit of a collection of stuff that I curated together for this live stream. And let me tell you folks, even just looking at some of the images that you're about to see here is daunting. It's devastating. I can't imagine people in the area that are dealing with this. I've been watching, as researching this topic and going into these stories. I've been around the clock watching streams of local news content over there to see what is going on, and it's a mess. It's a complete, utter, catastrophic mess. It's something like out of an apocalyptic movie. That's basically what's turned into. So, like I said, I pulled some images together and some video together to just highlight the significant damages that are going on over here. Here, example, this is one of the most populated roadways in Los Angeles. I'm not totally sure exactly where exactly these images are from place, but you can see the damages from there. Here's another couple there, one of them being an aerial shot of kind of the mountain area with the flames. Obviously, the iconic Hollywood sign engulfed in flames. Just absolutely, it's just absolutely scary to look at it. Even just I can't even imagine being in that circumstance. So here's some video coverage of this, and what I did was I put all of them together into one kind of montage just to show an example of what people are facing in this state as it's burning to a crisp.
Oh my God. We're out of the way. And until we get water tenders or the water system restored, we're doing the best we can with this. $1 million.
Oh, more. Oh my God, look at all these fucking homes.
From operations, copy that with that.
Oh my God.
That strike team reporting there, or no?
Holy fuck.
I'll take the strike team to assist with the area because we still have the community to leave. But if you have other priorities,
this is insane.
This is
like the most lovely.
Hi.
Jeez. So you can just see kind of the mayhem people have been dealing with the last couple of days. The Santa Ana winds aren't helping, which you can hear in the video. It's almost hurricane speed winds. Here's another video.
Oh, that's where I go to get my snow and the chickens.
Look at that. Jeez.
Oh, and I hope Chelada. Oh no, the seafood.
And this is
restaurant.
real live amateur footage, folks. This is not CGI. This is not
And
AI
Wiley's.
material.
Ah!
This is not Universal Studios producing this. This is legit.
This is. Oh, dude.
That's horrible.
Oh.
Wait, dude, this is super close to Big Rock. Fucking right here.
And Wiley's. Chelada. Oh, please.
That's heartbreaking.
So, as I said, even just gathering this footage that I'm showing you is almost just emotional just to witness it. I can't even imagine people that had to evacuate that are dealing with this catastrophic damages right now. We're going to get into later on exactly the mismanagement that unfolded that caused more of a spur to this, that added more fuel to the fire, no pun intended, and just kind of the misdirection of the governor, the mayor, and just the government within California, how it could have done more in precautionary to an event like this, considering the fact that you're dealing with California. They have high winds. There's, obviously it's wildfire season. They've had a drought for the last 8-9 months. It's a very dry area. You're talking about desert next to the ocean. And it's just, there's a lot of things they could have done that would have scaled back a lot of the damages. And now you have thousands upon thousands of structures that have been completely burnt to a wreck. You have multiple fires that firefighters, paramedics, EMTs are fighting periodically. On top of that, there's also complaints about water, which we'll get into later in the stream here. So here's the significant damage of just one neighborhood. This is in the Pacific Palisades, and you can see there's just nothing left. This is like a war zone. This is a complete, utter catastrophe of a residential area, one of the most highly dense residential areas in California, in this state. Just completely burnt to a crisp. So, Liz Churchill tweeted this out, and we kind of discussed a bit of this on the Wednesday stream and got into detail a little bit on that as this was ongoing. But here's just some more of it. So Californians had their home insurance canceled prior to these fires. We already kind of discussed at length last time, but just to remind people, their house fire insurance got canceled by these companies prior to the wildfires that burnt down their properties. The LA mayor is in Africa as she spends their tax dollars funding fire departments in Ukraine. So she sent the money to a foreign country, which Ukraine, at this point, it's just going to happen because of just heinous this government is. But she wasn't even in the state, not even in the country when this was going on. She got the warning. She got the messaging. She was alerted that there was high winds. You have a drought in your city. This is obviously all this cultivated together into a massive blaze. And she left. And people had no idea why, what was she thinking? Why would she just skip town like that? She wasn't even just going in California. She went to another continent. So it's just chaotic either way. There was no water to put out these fires, she also says, and California is next to an ocean. So this is the big thing, is that there was no water available to fight these fires. And you're talking about California, Southern California, which is a desert. They've been dealing with droughts for almost 8-9 months now with no rain in sight, and there was no collection of water in the case of a wildfire. So she links to this video. This is from the Fox affiliate in Los Angeles. And there's a guy here by the name of Caruso who's like a real estate developer. He is going to explain exactly the mismanagement steps that added more chaos and tension to an already devastating natural disaster. Listen to this.
My heart goes out, obviously, to the people with their homes, and I'm watching the small businesses around us go up in flames. This is people's livelihoods, so it's devastating. But what is most concerning to me is our first responders and our firefighters who are trying to battle this. There's no water in the Palisades. There's no water coming out of the fire hydrants. This is an absolute mismanagement by the city. It's not the firefighters' fault, but it's by the city. And I'm going to be very honest. We've got a mayor that's out of the country, and we've got a city that's burning, and there's no resources to put out fires. So if you look at your pictures, you don't see the firefighters there because there's nothing they can do. And it looks like we're in a third world country here. Mm-hmm. And we've got a lot of tough questions that we need to ask the mayor and the city council and our representatives and the county representatives. Why didn't you work to mitigate this? What was your brush mitigation program? I heard you earlier talking about it's been dry because there hasn't been rain. That's not the biggest problem here. The brush up in these hills that are controlled by the city and the county, I would bet you that if they haven't been handled, mitigated, pruned, removed for probably 30 or 40 years. This was a disaster waiting to happen. And what's predictable is preventable. And who's paying the price are all of these people in their homes and their businesses tonight. Now, we'll rebuild. But the majority of this community is going to have a tough time rebuilding their lives.
So, obviously, he said there's a lot at stake in the fact that, you know, the handling of things like forests and the water issue is obviously causing more havoc to this, adding more tension, increasing the necessity of what these firefighters are dealing with, and the fact that they can't get access to water to put out these fires. There's a lack of mitigation involving, you know, state and local governments. So, regardless of how this started, regardless of what people feel about this wildfire, the biggest thing is, you know, regardless of that, is how the city responded in efforts to this natural disaster, and the response that's continuing, that city representatives and state representatives have completely mismanaged the situation to make this devastation as catastrophic as it is. It's not even a third world nation, as that guy said. It looks like a bomb just went off. It looks like a total destruction, like LA just got completely wiped out. And, you know, they say there's optimism of rebuilding, but after something as devastating and horrible as this, even that, it's not going to be the same as it was. It's not going to be the same as it was in that situation. So now the big question is that everyone's asking is what's the problem with the water? And firefighters want to know because they went to tap the pumps and the hydrants and there was no pressure. So it says why LA firefighters were short of water to fight the huge wildfires. Fire hydrants in the Pacific Palisades went dry. Tanker trucks and water bombers deployed. So firefighters were still fighting Thursday to control a series of major fires in the Los Angeles area that have killed 5 people, ravaged communities, and sent thousands of people frantically fleeing their homes. A day earlier, firefighters fighting the massive blaze in the city, hilly Pacific Palisades and neighborhood, plugged their hoses into local fire hydrants and found that they couldn't get water flowing, local media such as the LA Times reported. Jazine Quinones, chief executive and chief engineer of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, said the problem was restricted to hydrants at high elevations. Quinones said all the water storage tanks in the Palisades had been emptied by 3 a.m. local time that morning. Those three tanks had each contained 3.8 million liters or a million U.S. gallons of water. The LADWP noted that the water continued to flow in the Palisades area through its main system. It added that firefighting had caused tremendous demand in the region, roughly quadruple the usual demand that lowered the water pressure in the Palisades area. The number of hoses needed for ground-level firefighting was particularly high due to the high winds that prevented water bombers from flying for much of the day. Mark Petrella, director of Los Angeles County Public Works, said at a news conference Thursday that a firefight with multiple fire hydrants drawing water from municipal water systems is just not sustainable. That's why the air support is so important. In response to a media question Thursday, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass acknowledged she was frustrated by the water issues on Wednesday, but she noted these wildfires were an unprecedented event. So, obviously, she does state that this was kind of unexpected, which in California, when you have such a dry land, when you have a situation where you've had droughts for many, many months, obviously you don't know exactly when a wildfire is going to come out. And they even said on the news in LA that usually around this time, during the winter months, they would get some sort of precipitation, they would get some sort of rain, and then the Santa Ana winds would come in and cool things down. They obviously didn't get that rain. Santa Ana winds came in, and that's when the fire started and spread it all over across Los Angeles. But, as we'll get into later in the show here, Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, knew all about this. So it wasn't unprecedented to know that there is a lack of water resource, that in a situation like this, in a critical situation, you prepare for it. And you think in a city like Los Angeles that has frequent wildfires on the regular in many of these seasons, you would be prepared for it. You would find a way to make sure you have those precautions if, God forbid, there was a fire to break out. If, God forbid, this situation occurred. But they didn't. And that's why people are so frustrated. And we're going to get into how exactly people are so frustrated with the situation. We also know that the fire hydrants are not constructed to deal with this type of massive devastation, she added. As of Thursday morning, she said the water situation was a little better since the winds had died down enough to allow for aerial firefighting. The LADWP said Wednesday afternoon that they had deployed 19 tanker trucks, each carrying 7,600 and 15,000 liters, or 2,000 to 4,000 U.S. gallons, to support firefighting efforts. Our crews are working on how to refill the tanks during this active firestorm, it added in a statement. It's also asking customers in the West Side to conserve water. So this is kind of a conundrum that even I have speculated, researching this and looking at the articles and obviously seeing the footage, is that in a place like California where it's very populated, obviously Los Angeles is the, I think, second or third largest population in the United States. There's lots of people there. There's lots of residences, multi-million-dollar mansions there. Obviously, the Hollywood industry. And I always found it interesting that in a place like that, where you know it's a desert, like Southern California, California is such a large state that if you go around California, you can simultaneously experience all four seasons in that state. So I never quite understood how Southern California was able to maintain itself being the desert that it is, while you look at Northern California, where they ski, I kid you not, there's actually snow in the mountain area, how they're able to maintain that weather difference in just one state. I never quite understood that. But looking into it, and we're going to get into later in the show here, is the fact that there's a way to mitigate the water so that they can refill their reservoirs at a critical time like this. And that is what has happened, is the fact that they did not prepare in a situation where you're in a state where there's known to wildfires, and when you have Santa Ana winds, when you have a drought for 8-9 months, like, these are all the active ingredients for this natural disaster to occur. And now you have on top high winds that are making this prevention, making the ability to extinguish these flames even more probable. And it's so problematic that people don't know what to do. And as we're speaking right now, I think it's over 20,000 acres in total have been burnt to a crisp. That is what I've been hearing about it. You may be hearing differently by the time you're watching this, but 20,000 acres of homes, shops, malls, everything. Structural damage. And the estimated cost of the damages is over $50 billion. And you're about to see later on how, even though this was kind of a spur of the moment action, that we don't know exactly where these fires came from, there was a lot that the city, that the state, that all these representatives should have came into action beforehand to make these precautions, these necessary actions to react to a situation like this. Considering the fact that California is no stranger to fire activity.